Good evening and welcome to the People's Platform. I'd like to begin tonight's show with a quote by Jean Kirkpatrick, a scholar and a former US ambassador to the United Nations, who said, "Democratic elections are not merely symbolic. They are competitive, periodic, inclusive, definitive elections in which the chief decision makers in a government are selected by citizens who enjoy broad freedom to criticize government, to publish their criticism, and to present alternatives." Indeed, we too are well aware of the importance of holding free and fair elections in a timely manner, in line with the Constitution and other laws. It's a cornerstone of democracy. Given Sri Lanka's current situation, is it politically expedient to hold elections? Is it financially feasible to hold elections? We're talking about the local government elections specifically, and we have two guests on our show tonight. Mr. Rohana Hettiarachchi, a veteran in the field of election monitoring. He also functions as the Executive Director of PAFRL. Good evening and welcome to you.
Good evening.
We are also joined by Dr. Sujatha Gamage, policy analyst specializing in governance. Good evening and welcome, Dr. Gamage. My first question is to Mr. Hettiarachchi. The local government elections have been fixed for the 9th of March 2023. There is so much conversation and debate surrounding these elections. Speak to us about why these elections must now go through.
I think question is not relevant to me because whatever the conversations in the ground and the political party, these elections is constitutionally within 4 years of time frame, the local election has to take place. But the constitution's again given some space for ministers, or rather act has given a space for the minister to postpone for 1 year. Now it has postponed actually without giving proper reasons also, but the time has over now. So the election has to take place before 19th of March because the election commission are duty bound to establish new councils and gazette all the councillors before 19th of March. So therefore, this is the duty of the elections commissions and this is clearly stated at the Elections Act and in certain areas refer to the constitutions also. So this is not the discretions of the people, or this is not the discretions of the political party or elections commissions. So elections should take place according to the law. So that is why I am saying this is not the relevant questions, or I mean it's not a debatable things. It must.
Yeah.
That is the people's voice and people's right to select their representative, whoever.
Dr. Gamage, as Mr. Hettiarachchi pointed out, it is imperative that elections must be held. However, in the past, we have seen the manner in which provincial council elections were postponed, local government elections were postponed, and even as at now, in the political sphere, we see so much melodrama surrounding this election. And one of the key debates, key points that is being sort of floated around is, look, we don't have money for an election, or that shouldn't be our priority. Our priority should be getting food on the table or making sure that the IMF is happy. So speak to us about the importance of holding an election in line with all these other priorities that seem to be like thrown.
I mean, it's by law. You have to hold the election. It's been budgeted. And, you know, you can't say you don't have money because it's in the budget. In the budget, you have the income and you have the expense. And every month, you know, you get some income and you have expenses. And the government can, you know, I don't think it's a relevant argument. I think there's all this melodrama. I don't know whether it's caused by the media itself, right? I think some of these arguments are juvenile, right?
Right.
But I think political expediency, of course, it's always political expedient for the governing party to delay elections if they think that their their majority in parliament would be somehow somehow devalued, somehow questioned, and we know what happened in 2018. Just remember, there was a coup, and the SLPP got only 42% of the votes overall. And but they used that, but they won most of the councils, majority in the most of the councils, which are more than less than 50%. But they took it as a referendum on the government, and we had a coup. So that's it. So the government in power, I'm not saying it's correct, but that's they're political animals. The government in power always want to postpone elections. We've seen that. Doesn't matter which party is in power. When you're in opposition, you want the elections, and also the opposition is also selective. They did not want the provincial council elections, right? Provincial council elections have been delayed now for some since 2016.
Yeah,
they were
almost
disordered.
5 years. Some
Cases.
cases.
Then some 5 years and others 4 years. They were, and remember the Rajapaksa government. They held the elections in three in
Staggered
succession,
elections.
staggered
They-
elections, right? That is for political expediency. So elections are always it's a political expediency. You can't blame them. Their job is to stay in power. But I think what we have to see from outside is, what is expedient for us as citizens. And also, I think if I can make, if some from that, and also political experience is a very complex thing here. In government, you have different factions. In opposition, you have different factions. And the president, what's politically expedient for him is different from what's politically expedient for the parliament.
Right.
Because president, let's, for argument's sake, let's say he wants to do something actually, right? Then what if the local government election is seen as a referendum on the government, and there's going to be violence, there's going to be a lot of protest and unrest in the streets, and is it the time, if you want to resolve the economic crisis and leave something? And I think so political expediency is different for different people, even in government.
Okay, so it's a very subjective concept.
So absolutely, the president's concerns would be different from the parliamentary's concerns. But I think, as Rohana said, all that is the rule of law we have to respect. And if that is because the rule of the law is, the Constitution is, no, it's not the Constitution, the Act is very clear. The Parliament make laws. They could have changed the law, and they would have made a law to say everybody agreed and say, we'll have the parliamentary election first, right? I mean, expedient for us, good for us is, I think personally, is to have not use this as a referendum on parliament. That is my worry, right? But it's...
So ideally, what do you think should happen?
Ideally, I think they should have come to some consensus and have the parliamentary election first. So rather than use this as a referendum on the parliament, because this is really doing this service to the local government. But I can talk later about how now that the election is going to happen. It has to happen. Let's see how we can turn it to our advantage, right? But I think a bad thing about this election is that it's going to be turned into a referendum on the government, and the local concerns are going to be lost in that.
Do you agree with Dr. Sujatha's sentiments, Ms. Hettiarachchi?
Well, whether we are going to have a parliamentary elections is or not, that's as a elections observer, so my position is we should go with the constitutions, right? So whether your other questions about the priority of the country, priority of the people, or priority of the political party, my answer is, if the politicians did have a priority in the past, this country may not suffer like this.
Yeah.
Because there was no priority for their programs. Their priority was, as Mrs. Gamage said, that stay in power. And they have done various development projects, taking loans and loans, roads, unnecessary development, airport, so many things. There was no priority. The priority was that popularity and making money out of it.
Yeah.
Now they are coming and saying us to the public, now we don't have money to buy medicines, we don't have dollars to buy fuel, and they are coming and saying us, but why we elect them, why we pay them, we are giving them a quite good perk, the salary, vehicle, all other facility, and their supportive staff to do their job. And now after 74 years or after 90 years, 90 odd years now, they rule us. But now they can't come and say, no, sorry, now we are suffering, there are a lot of economic issues, election is not the priority. That's their failure. They can't tell us. That is their job. So somehow the government, especially the president, the constitutions again clearly stated that president should make sure all the support to the elections commission, hold the elections, any elections, if the elections commission request. That is, he is duty bound to support that. And again, again some other sections constitution says that if anyone is not supporting elections commission, or if anyone is not following the elections commission's guidance, constitutionally we can go against those either politicians or, I mean, not the politicians, of course, actually the government officials. Now most of the government officials who are responsible the economy and the supporting the elections commission's treasury and finance ministry, if they are not willing to support the elections commissions, they are violating the constitutions. So we can file a case against them. So therefore they can't say no. Somehow they need to manage the situations because this what you call budget, they have prepared 1 month ago, 1.5 months roughly, and they have a budget. They have allocated 70 billion, or they are planning to 70 billion for 2023. Now we are asking 10 billion. It's a half the expenses of the budget. So if they are not managed to give that, so they are failure. The government as well as the government officials, because they are the managers of the country, and they are managing our money, not their money. So as a citizens, that is our right to vote at every 4 years for local elections. So if they are violating that, that is their failure. Then of course we have to have elections if they are not capable enough to manage our money.
Dr. Gamage, there seems to be a massive disconnect between elections being a tool of electing into office people to serve the citizenry, and the disenchantment of the citizenry that we feel amidst us. How do we reconcile this?
Reconcile?
How can we have faith in an election when people are so disenchanted with the system itself?
I think election is really, we started, our trouble started, really, they've been there, but we really made a mark in March 12th when we defaulted, and now it's been a year. And I think there was a reason we were some of the people, I volunteer with the National Movement for Social Justice, and we were really working on, said no election at this time, let's get some reforms done, don't go to elections before reforms, because people out there asking for elections. But I think we've had a year, and I think, yes, people do need a place to vent out there, there need to be a place. What is the time and how is the question? But as you said, disenchantment, actually election is a good tool for that.
Right.
The only problem is, my only issue is, I really care about local government. If in my policy work, something that I come to appreciate is that one of the most key problems in this country is over-centralization. and the center taking power, and our local governments are just become just appendages, of central government. So in that sense, I'm really unhappy that this local government is being used as a referendum because of the timing. Referendum on the. So I think people need a way to vent and give, I think the government needs a fresh mandate, no doubt.
Okay.
Right? I think ideally, not politically, but I think economically, for the country, for stability, the bad stability word is, I would say, we could use another, maybe end of the year would be the ideal time for elections. But this is not the time to talk about political expediency or ideal time. By law, we have to have the elections. I think the rule of law is very important. Once we let that go, a lot of other things can, other things, rest follows, rest crumbles. So I think by rule of law, we should have the election. So I think, Sonali, I think we should now talk about how do we make this election a more productive one. Right? I think as for political experience, I don't know whether you want to cover some more on that, but I think the political experience is quite clear. Governing party, political expediency, is to not hold or just, not give support to that, right? Or let some technicality happen and, maybe get delayed. And it's not, I wouldn't blame any political party. That's the nature of politics. And the opposition, of course, want to have the election. So political expediency, I think, is, in a way, it's quite clear. It is. Right? Political experience.
Sonali, I wish to add some point for what Dr. Sujatha said. Now, the main reason which they are talking about this economic crisis. So, I didn't see any of these economics or expert on economy say that the economic situation will recover within next 1 year or 2 years period. So, 2 elections are due. I mean, forget about the provincial elections for the moment. Of course, we have to serious about the provincial elections. That's a different situation. But the parliamentary elections and the presidential elections will take place 2024 and 2025. So, if we are not fully covered with the economic crisis, are we saying that, sorry, we don't have enough resources, we don't have money to hold the parliamentary elections or a presidential election, so let go for next couple of years. Are we ready to see such a situations? So they can't play with this. Whoever running the country, as Dr. Sujatha mentioned, now they wanted to stay in power. So as a citizens, as a civil society organizations, we are not there with them. I mean, we are fighting to constitutional right of the people.
Yeah.
Let me ask something from Rohana. Rohana, 2024 is when the parliamentary election is due, and 2025
presidential election.
Presidential and then the parliamentary. So, yes. And just a minute. No, the other way.
No, presidential election will be took place.
Yes. So, what I'm saying is actually, economically or anything, I think the government needs a fresh mandate. I think because that's, because in Kenya, they went into default, I think, December. I mean, within 1 year, they had a presidential election, new president came, and, he's actually managing the crisis. And I think they will be out of the woods. So I think in that sense, I think it'll be good to have a new mandate, but when is the question. But my problem is, let's try not to make this, it's already happened. The local government is being made a mandate for the government. My problem with this is that the local government, we are going to not have another election for 4 years. And for the next 4 years, we are going to work with these local councils. And if they are, what happens after these local elections is the political parties, they leave, they go to Colombo, and their business is something else now. Right now, they've got the foot soldiers in place. So I think we should really, media and a civil society should focus on, let's have the election, but let's try to make it productive one. So let's have that conversation there, because the political experience question, in my opinion, is, it's good. There's political experience. I don't think it's a bad thing. we have to understand that.
I'm really appreciate that point, because now this is the 75th elections which we are going to have. But
75th meaning all elections.
All elections,
provincial, local, since 1940.
1931.
1931.
Wow.
Okay.
So
that's the anniversary.
So the problem here is, even if you have a regular elections, periodic elections, I'm not saying that we had the periodic and in a periodic election during last 4 or 5 decades, but somehow we had elections. But what is the result end of the day? So the biggest issue in this country, not the elections, the quality of our representative. They are not delivering what they are supposed to do. I mean, for example, now the parliamentarians are the one who has responsible for our money. They need to safeguard. They need to manage our money. If they properly manage, we will not be in this crisis. And on the other hand, they are the lawmakers. We have enough experience in the Parliament Elections Act or any constitutional reforms. For example, now this 21st Amendment. It's the 5th time we are having the same topic. Time to time we change that. There are 23 members, I mean, starting from 17th Amendment.
Yeah.
The 17th Amendment quite good for, look at the governance side. Then the 18th Amendment is completely opposite. Then the 19th, then 20th, then 21st. So there are 23 parliamentarians who were voted for all constitutional reforms. So this is the country where we are. Actually, if we need to politicians, we need to have a representative who recognize, who value people's representations and their duty. So that is the biggest problem. Even now we are going to elect 8,700 councillors for all these 339 local authorities. End of the day, nothing will change. So people will say, okay, look, we spent 10 billion and nothing changed on our life. So that is there. So that is why I really appreciate what Dr. Sujatha said. We need to look at beyond the elections.
I mean, spot on. Dr. Gamage, the fact that we don't have conscionable people's representatives is a whole other issue. But I mean, as at now, I don't think there's anything we can do about it. How can we best make use of the election? What do we do to ensure that we have the best results from the election?
We can't change things overnight. In this country, people have been looking to the center as some source of resources, power, jobs, and that it flows down. So they elect their representatives so that they can get something from the central government. One thing people should realize is the central government has nothing to give, right? So there's no more hand-me-downs, the contracts, all these things, they were there, projects. So the people have to, in the next 5-10 years, the local councils have to develop local resources. And you can't anymore, elect these foot soldiers. The foot soldiers, they just gather people, they gather crowds for the meetings. So that's been the pattern. So I think people have to really think, we need to, if you want to change things, this is the time to begin with local councils. Just because it's very easy, a ward is only 2 to 3 Gram Nildari divisions. In some places, it can be large in area, but you have a small area and you can meet your representative. You can actually know who you are voting for. It's not usually in elections, I don't know when I voted for the parliamentary elections. I think I knew personally one person, but most people you haven't met and you will never again meet. But in this case, it's a special election. You can meet your representative before election, after election, and we have to put in place mechanisms to ward committees, Jana Sabhas, things for you to make sure you meet your representative, so we can begin changing the representatives in this election. So I really think people should pay attention to the representative.
Okay.
You know, the ballot, if you take the ballot for local elections, very simple. The name of the party is there and the symbol of the party, but nothing about the person. Because in our country, we can't afford to do that. You know, if you do that, you have to have a separate ballot paper for each ward. That means 5,000 ballot papers. So it's a very simple ballot paper. So people are so used to just, you know, we've always voted this party, or we want to get rid of this party, we want to vote for this party, and just give a vote for the party. But this time they should not do that. They should look for the person behind the party symbol.
Yeah.
It's very important, and you can get to know that person. They'll be going canvassing, you'll just get information, and it's very important. You know, if you're concerned about the state of the country and you're always complaining, this is the time to make a change. Send some good people. You know, at the end of the day, selecting the chairman, that's another story, what will happen. But first, let's start with good people at one ward at a time. Who's a good person? I mean, they've done a lot of work on that.
Yeah.
We can talk about it.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think this is very, very small step. You know, when you do your vote, when you do your cross, just think about, who am I voting for? Who is this person? Is this person going to be another foot soldier for the political parties and looking for contracts and something from the contracts? Or will this person really serve the area and, you know, is committed for change, committed to do something for your area, your village or your city or whatever.
Okay.
So now we have introduced, I think you all know that March 12 movement
Of
for
course.
clean politics. So we introduced scorecard for voters to assess their candidate.
Right.
In the concept is, I mean, no need to print and distribute among the public. Of course, we did in the past. But the concept is, you can look at, as Dr. Gamage mentioned, you can list out all the candidates in your area and you can give some sort of marks. So whatever the marks you give, no, you can put up the criteria first. Whatever the criteria, it should be positive, no? You can say that you want to have some bad people who corrupted people. Anyway, always you will put some positive criteria. So then you can give the marks. End of the day, you can select. There is a rationale to select your the candidate. In these elections, you know, in Sri Lankan electoral system now, earlier we had in some chance, but now you have to select the party. You don't have choice to select the person. If you select the party, whoever in the list get elected. So if you are not happy with the person, then you have to change your party.
Right.
So this time, as Dr. Gamage mentioned, this is the good time, because we are talking about the system change. We are talking about the political culture change, and we are just after this Aragalaya, and so youth uprising or whatever. So this is the first elections which you are facing. So we need to take this opportunity to select good people. So they can. I mean, the voters can decide many ways how they are going to select them. But unfortunately, in our experience, even in 2018, the local elections also, the voters take it as national elections. In 2018, it happened.
Right.
These elections also can be. Actually, people are not selecting a party or a persons. They are against the party or a people. So that is what happened in 2018.
Let's talk about this more in detail right after this short commercial break. Stay with us.
Across all walks of life, listening to the people, visiting door to door, witnessing the truth firsthand. This is the heart of the village. Gammetta. For the people, by the people.
Politicians who have power must use it for the right reason.
The right to food, right to health, right to social protection. Where are we at? People are down to 1 meal a day.
What should be the norm and what should be the exception?
It means that you can be taken in even without a charge.
We at Face the Nation must bring out what the people need heard.
Face the Nation every Wednesday at 9:30 p.m. on TV1.
A very good evening and welcome back to The Brief at 30 here on TV1.
The Brief at 30.
The Brief at 30 here on TV1.
Welcome back to The Brief at 30 on TV1.
News can be overwhelming, but we make it simple. Watch The Brief at 30 on TV1, Facebook Live and YouTube. Every weekday 9:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m.
To watch online, look for the Newsfirst.lk English page on Facebook and hit the like button. Or search for @newsfirst.english on YouTube and subscribe to the News First English page. Don't forget to hit the notification bell.
The Brief at 30, your trusted Ollie news update.
Away to The Brief at 30 next hour. Take care.
Welcome back. We're discussing the upcoming local government election, how to make the best use of the election. We are in conversation with Mr. Rohana Hettiarachchi and Dr. Sujatha Gamage. Mr. Hettiarachchi, we've seen the manner in which people at large have in the past voted very impulsively, very emotionally, in that if an incumbent government was not performing its duties by the people, they would immediately resort to voting against that government, just impulsively, without considering the sort of importance of the other candidates.
When it's not a parliamentary election, when it's a local election.
Yes, at local government elections.
Actually, that's what I explained in 2018. That's what happened during 2018 local elections. So there will be a similar situations in these elections too, but we can't say exactly the people's view. But I mean, if you look at the ground situations, and the peoples are frustrating with the situations. I mean, I can't say whether they are happy with the government or not. I mean, as an observer, I have to maintain my neutrality. But of course, yes, this time too, as Dr. Sujatha mentioned, people need to serious about these elections rather than playing with politics. They need to take this opportunity to select the best people without considering the political party, because this is the second time which we are going to exercise this vote-based system.
Right.
The purpose of this system introduced in 2012 initially, I mean, there were a couple of changes, amendments in 2016 and 17, include this women's quota and other things. But one of the purpose that we need to have a local representative who is living in the same area and who know the people, who know the issues and that locality. So these elections, people need to think about it.
Right.
And also there should be a rationale why I vote for this candidate. Because generally people look at the national politics and sometimes they go with their families, parents and even grandfathers. So we were there from last 30-40 years with that party, this party and that party. So but now I think it's little change, especially the young people. So we need to emphasize, we need to educate the voters how they should select, what are the criteria they should consider for this upcoming elections. Of course, as Pastoral and Martial movement, we are preparing some apps. I wonder whether we can come up with before the elections. But we are trying our level best to introduce some app for the people give some guidance
Yeah.
to select their representative.
Right. Dr. Gamage, could you weigh in on the importance of voter education?
Yes, 2018 election was really a significant change from the previous elections. It's the first time in Asia Pacific that this kind of method of election, mixed member proportional system, was introduced. I don't think even the parliament, members of parliament fully understood that, not even the people contesting and people least of all the people. One of the key considerations there was that the result would be proportional. The council will be proportionally represented, but 60% of the seats will be selected on the basis of who comes first past the posting vote, so that people have some closeness to the representatives. But at the end of the day, you don't give bonuses to the other parties, you give some additional seats so that the council is proportionate.
Right.
So, but anyway, the important thing is people were given a chance to have a representative who is responsible for them and who they can meet day in, day out in their limited area. And I don't think anybody understood the significance of that. And at that time, as it was an emotional response to the instability in the country, perceived instability, and people just voted to show their displeasure at the government, and they were actually just harming themselves. Because local level, I think even in the next few years, even education, a lot of that has to be done at the local level. Right now, central government has no money. Education budget, it's actually essentially halved because of inflation, right? Nobody knows what's happening at the local level at the bottom 20%. Are the children starving? Are they going to school? We don't know. The central government doesn't know. You have to, if you care about children and if you care about a locality, we need local solutions. So use this chance to elect good local politicians, local representatives for yourself, because local solutions is going to be really important. Because it's a bankrupt country. We have not paid our loans and we'll have to start paying them, right? So I think yes, the people have not understood the voter education. It should not be complex. I tried to explain the mixed member proportional. No, most important thing is you are getting a representative for your area, and those represent together will elect a chairman, and it will constitute a council. So at least the least they can do is, they have no influence on how the chairman is elected. There could be all kinds of, all kinds of dealings. Money might be involved. But at least if they focus on what they can do, which is to send somebody who will not be looking for contracts as a living, somebody who doesn't have to be a wealthy person. But if somebody has a rich lifestyle and you can't see obvious way of he makes money, that's not the kind of person you want to elect, right? Definitely somebody who will not be corrupt, who's competent, right? It's not education, who has actually shown that they can get around, run around and get something done. Right. Somebody who we can use their, use your mouth, use your words rather than your fists. That's a really important thing, Is this the kind of person who is the first to, start a fist fight? Because look at the councils. They break into fist fight anytime,
Yeah, it's super scary.
So that's a good measure, will this fight, will they be able to resolve something, collaboratively, discussing and with their words, or will they use fists? I think that's a very important consideration. So I think people don't have much choices. We don't know what will happen after all the members are elected and when it's time to elect the chairman. But at least if everyone, we elect reasonably good people, then I think we can have some hope.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Last 3 minutes of the show, Mr. Hettiarachchi, the President has informed the All-Party Leaders Conference that the Cabinet agrees to fully implement the 13th Amendment until party leaders decide whether or not to abolish the amendment. Speak to us about the sort of situation surrounding this, because the 13th Amendment to the Constitution has drawn so much conversation and debate throughout the years. What kind of impact will this now have? Just weigh in on this if you can during the last few minutes of the show.
I think this is a joke for me, because the President is talking about 13th Amendment, full implementations of the 13th Amendment with the political party. Even Mr. Mahinda Rajapaksa was talking about 13 plus,
yeah.
right? But now we don't have a provincial elections. And the present president, when he was in power during Yahapalana period, he brought some proposals. We call it 20th Amendment at that time. There were a couple of good things also in that the amendment, constitutional amendment. But we realized they use it for strategy to postpone the same thing what's happening now. Then we went to court and they withdrew. Then again they brought up this women's quota, so everyone was happy. We supported. But in the second reading, they brought completely new electoral system, provincial system. And now, almost 5 years, we don't have elections. So without having elections, this is just playing with the people, just playing with some politicians, opposition politicians. I don't see any real intentions to do this, make some sort of solutions among the.
Weigh in on that, yeah. But the thing is, the national question, the ethnic question, that is at the bottom of this. We can get over the macroeconomics. We might restructure the debt, but what's been holding us is this race baiting, and so I think we know, Mr. Wickramasinghe has been promising, but the performance has been, the opposite, because he's been playing politics at the same time. But I think we should take the president's word. He cannot do it in February 4th. But I think if we can, we also need to, whatever he says, we need to push him in that direction and get some resolution to the national question. Let's not look at the past record, but let's, because we have no choice, because we have even, one opportunity is finally those two, Mahinda Rajapaksa and Ranil Wickramasinghe, are together. Let's use this opportunity, right? Let's use this opportunity.
Agree.
Because it won't come again with a new parliament. So let's use the next 3 months. I think we all should push for it.
Okay, but we said the same thing during Yahapalana also. Maitri and Ranil Wickramasinghe could be a good combination.
No. I think we need to be a bit hopeful, as Dr. Gamage said.
Yeah, it must be done. It must be done.
Agree.
Okay, perfect. And on that positive, hopeful note, let's conclude tonight's show. Thank you so much, Mr. Rohana Hettiarachchi and Dr. Sujatha Gamage, for being a part of tonight's show and for weighing in on all these important questions. Thank you for watching us. We'll see you again on Monday with a single edition of the People's Platform. Have a safe, joyous weekend. Good night.